Hey, everybody, welcome back to Author Ecke. I'm Travis Davis, and we have Mark Greathouse today, who has written, I believe he just told me, 8 books. And that's a lot
Correct.
of words, folks, a lot of stories. So I'm going to let him introduce himself, and we'll kind of take it from there. You know how kind of Author Ecke works. We just go with the flow. So go ahead, sir. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Travis. Appreciate it. Again, it's Mark Greathouse. Catch me on Amazon, Barnes. Anyway, latest book. It's the sixth of a series of Tumbleweed Sagas. The story of a fellow named Texas Ranger named Luke Dunn, who is kind of a prototypical Texas Ranger, which is kind of cool given that this year we're celebrating the 200th anniversary of the Texas Rangers. So kind of cool deal.
And they're
Um,
still active, by the way. There's still Texas Rangers
oh
today
yeah,
that do a lot of the more of the high profile things and everything. So there are still Texas Rangers, but they drive cars and stuff.
oh
Maybe
yeah. It's
maybe
it's been a
horses.
way
Oh,
since Frank Hammer and Bonnie and Clyde. But, we get.
yeah.
Um, in fact, to be uh, straight here, I've actually just did an article for the Roundup magazine, the Western Writers of America magazine, and on Texas Rangers because I have 4 Texas Rangers in the family, and I'm sure there's viewers
Oh,
out there
wow. That's
that have
awesome.
lawmen in their background.
Mhm.
But actually, my grandfather was a Ranger, and we can get into that. But I will say that I had known of it, but I happened to be in a little place called Falfurrias, Texas, few years back, and they have a little museum there. And I figured, I'll check it out. I love to check out, do research,
Mhm.
check out museums, walk where my characters walked, and all that. And lo and behold, they had a Texas Ranger wing. I get in there, and what do you think I find? The muster in and muster out papers of my own grandfather, Horace Greathouse,
No, that's pretty slick.
and a
That's
photograph of his
humbling.
company.
Yeah. Oh,
Mind
wow.
blowing. Mind
Oh,
blowing. You
that's
just never
crazy.
know.
By the way, the Texas Ranger Museum is in Waco, Texas. If any of
Correct.
y'all
Yeah.
want to stop by there on your way down 35 to Austin or San Antonio.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's an amazing, actually smaller museums that are around Texas,
Mhm.
and every one of them is worth it. You get a little different spin,
Exactly.
if you will.
Exactly.
But anyway, so my tumbleweed sagas occur from basically about 1856 and run through to the end of the war between the states. Notably, down Texas way, they don't call it the Civil War. We're going to get that straight. It's the war between the states or the War of Northern Aggression, but there's nothing civil about it as far as the Texans were concerned, or much of the South for sure. But at any rate, Luke is out. He's a immigrant from Ireland, and he is finds it necessary to leave Ireland since he's been associated with some rebel causes over there. And between that and the famine and the British oppression in general, he finds his way down to Corpus Christi, where he's got relatives, and gets into law enforcement. Starts out as a deputy sheriff, and
Mhm.
he's uh, policing cockfights and stuff like that. And ultimately, he latches into a Texas Ranger who recruits him, and that's where his life begins. Basically, trying to deliver justice and
Mhm.
redemption on what's called the Nueces Strip. The Nueces Strip is basically southern Texas. Some folks called it the Wild Horse Desert, but it was tough country, a lot of prairie towards the eastern part, and then it gets up to the some of the hill country up towards Uvalde, Texas, and
Mhm.
and then all the way west to Laredo. And tough country, but of course he has the love of his life. He pursues all sorts of desperadoes. One in particular in the first book, it's called Nueces Justice. He's actually got a guy named Bad Bart of all names, but he's pursuing the guy. He finally gets him dead to rights. He's got a gun on him, and he's trying to get the guy to surrender. And he warns the guy not to move a muscle. Well, the guy moves a muscle.
Mhm.
He doesn't know there's a rattlesnake at head level right next to him. And as soon as he moves, ouch,
Oh,
he's done. He's cooked. So early on, our hero has some success in bringing the bad guys to justice. Sometimes
mhm.
with a little help from So,
Mother Nature.
exactly. But we've got a woman who is kind of loses at love, if you will. She winds up in a bawdy house in Laredo,
Mhm.
and ultimately, this is the case of as we move through the sagas, becomes a case of redemption. Actually, she fights it all the way, but you know, it's a great to follow how she goes through the process. We've got a couple of Comanche,
Mhm.
and they're rather fun to write about. One is called as a Comanche chief named Three Toes, and he's got the name. You know, the Indians tended to apply names that were associated with some event in their lives
Mhm.
or associated with something. And for in his case, he lost a couple of toes in battle, and he only had three, so Three Toes. And he's kind of got it in his mind to kind of get Luke Dunn, our hero. But Luke fools him, of all
Mhm.
things, and captures him. And actually, they then become friends. And Three Toes is trying to understand the white man's ways so he can help his
Mhm.
people. So we go through that process.
Right.
Later on, we have another in a later Tumbleweed Sagas. We've got One Arrow, who gets his name for having shot a buffalo as a youth with one arrow, killed a
Oh
buffalo.
wow,
Oh yeah, um,
that's pretty hard.
right. And actually, Travis and I were just talking earlier about being at Custer State Park. We were actually at this year and got to see the buffalo herd, and my wife got a picture of a buffalo 10 feet away from the car. It
They're
was amazing.
huge.
A big cow. Woo. Anyway,
They're
yeah,
huge. Yeah,
you don't get that in
amazing
the car. You
animals.
don't mess
Amazing
with it.
animals.
Anyway, so my Tumbleweed Sagas, there's six out now. There's a seventh and final one that'll be coming called Nueces Legend. I'd like to hopefully going to get that out towards the end of this year. Um, and but at any rate, there were two more books in my that Defiance Press has published for me. One being Nicholas Dunn, The Making of a Texas Legend, which is actually a biography. Technically, it's historical fiction because I throw in dialogue and that sort of thing. But it's a story of my great great grandfather, a gentleman who arrived as a 15-year-old in 1850 with a
Wow.
family plow and two uncles. One was established a blacksmith shop in Corpus Christi, and the other was a rancher. And they had come at the bidding of a third uncle, a guy named Matt Dunn, who was taken
Now
under the
he
wing.
was from Ireland.
Yeah, all from County
So
Kildare.
you want to hear a story?
Yeah.
My great grandfather, last name is Dunn, from Ireland, Cork County, Cork, around that area,
Okay.
and came to the United States in 1880 or something on the ship that was a Blue Star ship before the Titanic.
Whoa.
Came over and settled from initially in Buffalo, New York, with his brother,
Okay.
then down to Arkansas, Mississippi area, because there was a large migration of Irish that
Oh yeah.
settled in that part of the United States. That's
Yeah, I've
crazy. I
read
mean,
about
that's interesting.
Yeah, but you know, Dunn in
Yeah,
Ireland is like
very
Smith or
common.
Brown.
Yeah, yeah,
In
yeah,
fact, it
exactly,
means brown.
exactly.
Oh yeah, that's great.
That's
Um,
crazy.
so he came as a 15-year-old. The rest of his family arrived a year later. You know, he's very happy to meet him at the dock.
Mhm.
But I was going to say the first uncle that arrived actually came in 1845 and was given a property by Colonel Kinney, the founder of Corpus Christi, in exchange for minding the colonel's fighting cocks.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and he served as a sutler to General Zachary Taylor during the Mexican American War.
Who was the
Uh,
president, by the way, folks? Right?
eventually, yes, he was.
Eventually.
Good old Zach. Yeah, I knew him well. No, I
Yeah,
don't go that.
yeah.
Anyway, so my great great his name was Nicholas Dunn. He arrives in
Mhm.
1850. He learns about livestock and ranching. He actually gets on some cattle drives, He gets a reputation, as I come to find out in my research, as quite a Comanche fighter and a marksman, and gets a good reputation along those lines. He eventually acquires land. He gets a ranch. He has about 15,000 acres near a town of what is now Alice, Texas, railroad town. And he raises 9 children with his wife, Andrea. And at any rate, it was
That's a small family back then.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and 2 more brothers eventually come.
Oh wow.
I mean, and so it's quite the family enterprise. And I think now the latest, what we got out of the family tree, through 10 generations, been able to identify 2,300 descendants of the 5 brothers. Most of them still in Texas.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, and they
Man,
were
a family reunion is going to cost you an arm and a leg.
They had one. I think the last one was in 2010, and they had like 700 or 800 people attend in Corpus Christi. Yeah,
that's a lot of chicken.
Hey man. But the stories that were associated with my great-great-grandfather, from Comanche attacks to some of the history of the area, dealing with the famous 1875 Good Friday raid, yellow fever, all those kind of things. He eventually he lived to be 77. He died in 1912.
Oh wow!
And he was feisty. They said he had a Texas twang with an Irish brogue. kind of a hoot. And then the other book that that Defiance published for me was an anthology called Tumbleweed Tumblings, Western Tales and Verses. And basically it's a collection of short stories and poetry of the West.
Oh, wow.
Primarily focused on Texas, but some of the short stories are a lot of fun. Some of them are background on characters in the Tumbleweed Sagas.
Right.
And they're entertaining, I can assure you. Some of them are really funny.
And all available on Amazon or on
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and any pop stuff. Right. All available online. Most of my books, they're available in print and ebook. The first 5 Tumbleweed Sagas are available in audio as well.
Okay.
So
excellent. Perfect for summer or fall.
Oh yeah. At the beach. Truck drivers love them.
Right.
You know.
Put it in audiobook and listen. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So what made you start writing about the West, or how long you've been writing, or what
Oh my goodness. All right. Let's very briefly, but start at the beginning. I've graduated up here from a major university up here, University of Maryland. Anyway,
I went to that.
English degree. I got into the defense industry. I wrote tech manuals. It was a real art form because you had to write at unfortunately, at 6th grade level. But I wrote the operating procedures for ballistic missile submarines.
Okay.
Right down to the countdowns. It was cool. I even got a ride on one.
Wow, that's awesome.
It was wild. Beautiful, beautiful beasts, those submarines. Yeah. And they eat like kings. Woo.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so I from that I got into a broader range of publications. I got into strategic business plans, speech writing, video scripting, public relations. I even wrote pieces of congressional legislation. I worked for a couple of large defense contractors, and for one of them, I headed their corporate PAC, political action committee. Yeah. Got involved in community affairs. I was president of a major chamber of commerce. I loved it. But I was writing constantly. I tried self-publishing a couple books, didn't go very well. One of them was a self-help book for men. You know how that goes.
We don't listen. We don't listen.
Exactly. I finally had a novel for teens that seemed to hit it off, that I self-published, called Jackson's Journey. Sorry, Defiance, they didn't get to publish that one. But every once in a while, so you
get a sale or two.
Every once in a while, I get a check. And that was 2007. So go figure. Anyway, I I finally, after my dad passed away, for some reason, I got into a family history and family tree that he had gotten hold of.
Hmm.
And I said, wow, this would make some good stories.
Right.
I really love Texas. If it wasn't for my kids and my soon to be grandchild living up here in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
we'd be retired in Texas.
Right.
But that's not going to happen. And,
Right.
you know,
Understand that.
yeah, gotta keep that marriage going. Anyway, um, and so I started to write a biography of the Nicholas Dunn, my great great grandfather, and that was fascinating because I could go back to the history to where I could dig it out. It was
Hmm.
hard to find because the British destroyed so much in Ireland.
Right.
Uh, but I was able to dig out a lot of family records. I even got a contact with somebody in Australia sent me information that kind of came out of the blue.
Oh, wow.
Um, but it grabbed my attention. It turns out that I had a cousin, John Hillard Dunn. Eventually, I'm publishing his biography. It's written.
Hmm.
It's called Tough Hombre. Eventually, it'll get out. But he registered it with the Texas Historical Association, and it laid out a family narrative. It was only about 40 pages.
Hmm.
I transcribed it and took care of some typos, but basically it formed the framework for writing that story, my great great grandfather's story.
Hmm.
And from that, I said, wow, what else can I do? So it was about this time that I got involved with a little organization called the Texas Nationalist Movement. You heard of that?
Exit.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, I do. I know about
Okay. So you know
that.
Dan.
Yeah.
And anyway, his wife, Kara, says, I joined that. I wanted to find out more about, well, what about Texas secession? What do they got in mind?
Hmm.
And in the course of my research. And she says, hey, I got somebody to put you in touch with. She puts me in touch with Dave Roberts.
Hmm.
And I started my little dance back. This is the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, a
Hmm.
little dance with Defiance Press. And eventually, Dave says, well, I like this biography you done. What else you got? And lo
Right.
and behold, I had this other book, the first one,
Hmm.
Nueces Justice. So we set up the little partnership deal they had. Well, the book sold. It a few hundred copies, and they felt good enough about it.
Which is good for a first time publisher, for first time
Oh my
author.
goodness,
Author
oh, it blew me
books is
away.
good.
Oh yeah, and so they put me under a traditional contract
Hmm.
and committed to another 4 books, and it went on from there.
Right.
I've been certainly quite blessed, and just continue not only continuing that story, but I'll tell you, Travis, I got a backlog of books. I've got the 7th and final saga that I
Hmm.
mentioned. I've got an alt history on Sam Houston,
Oh, wow.
which is going to be a potboiler because his dream was to annex Mexico and then run for president of the United States. And there's writings that he expressed that.
Oh, wow.
Um, so in my alt history, we make that happen. Um, I've got the aforementioned biography of John Hillard Dunn, the tough hombre, who was fascinating. He turned out to be a railroad man.
Hmm.
Um, Worked on the Panama Canal. He helped build some Texas railroads. He spent a big part of his career as a roadmaster on the Nickel Plate Railroad up in Terre
Hmm.
Haute, Indiana. Returned to Texas, became an oil guy
Hmm.
before he passed. Um, I've got a book called on a it's a mystery western
Ah,
called Lone Star Vigilante, where we got a retired Texas Ranger who's frustrated with the time it takes for the law to wreak justice and takes the law into his own hands. And they got a, you're talking
well,
1895.
I think we're coming back to that.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's 1895, and you know
Yeah.
what? Forensics are trying to find a vigilante. The guy works in the dark.
Right.
All you know what? Pretty much guess what kind of rifle he's firing,
Right.
and not much less. There's
Exactly.
So few clues. And I have twists in that plot that'll blow a reader's mind.
Excellent.
And then I am, I left one out, I'm sure, but I have I've just started a novel that will probably be ready towards the end of the year for teens. And it's going to be about a young man whose family's homesteaded in the eastern part of what's called the Comancheria. And for viewers who don't know what that is, it was a region populated by the hostile tribes, mostly Comanche, ergo the name Comancheria. And Comanche, incidentally, in the Ute language, where they loosely translated that to enemy. So Comanche, that kind of said it all.
Oh, wow.
And they were nasty people, man. We won't go into the tortures. They were ugly. Never mind. Well, we'll get to it. But anyway, Comancheria basically extended from as far south as San Antonio, north into Kansas and Colorado, western Oklahoma, eastern New Mexico, and that whole panhandle region of Texas. And it was, if you thought the prairie and the frontier was rough, Comancheria is 10 times that. It was brutal. And so they chose to hit to homestead, and the young man is off fishing one day, comes home to find that his family's been massacred by Comanche. And there the story ends.
So it's safe to assume that you'll be having more books in the future.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. You can't keep a good horse. Louis L'Amour wrote, he wrote what, 109 novels?
Oh, yeah.
I got a long way to go, man.
I'm on my third, and I hope to be done by November into the year. Have it out probably June, July next year. It'll be my third.
Worthy.
And so, how do you write? Do you outline? What's your writing style? I don't, by the way.
I've in a writers group, I hear it. I've heard it in. I've gone to 3 Western Writers of America conventions now. And by the way, next year's is in Tulsa in June, Oklahoma, and in 2025 it's going to be in Amarillo, Texas.
Both nice places.
Oh yeah, loved Amarillo. Woo.
Yeah. Buy a big steak there. If you eat it all, you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, that's what I heard. But I saw the size of the steak and I went, "Whoa, baby!"
Like 64 ounce or 80 some ounce. I'm like,
oh yes, God. I think 64. I think you nailed it.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, but I did. By the way, I did get we did get to Dallas. I got a niece who lives in Euless.
Okay.
And we did the Fort Worth stockyards, which I've done before, but it was great to go back there. But she took us to the Hard Eight barbecue down in Roanoke.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, it was delightful.
They got one in the Colony too. It's really good. Yeah, I like that.
There you go. So, at any rate, but where were we?
your writing style.
It's inspiration. I have never once in writing Westerns experienced what they call writer's block. I mean, and people look at me like, you're kidding. No, it's a matter of, it just flows. You're so motivated, so inspired to get out a message. And my underlying message is you want to leave something behind to your kids, the world, of some meaning, of some significance,
Yeah, I agree. I only have writer's block until I get the beginning of the book right. And then once I get the beginning of the book right, then I don't have writer's block. I could just have just this thoughts and I write them all out, and then I'll write not in sequential order in a book. I'll write different parts of the book and make them all match up. I'll have some ideas like, I want to do this. I'll say, okay, let me put this part, and I know how to match it back up as I go. But yeah, I don't. But once I get writing, I sat down. I exercised in the morning, and I sat down outside, and I probably wrote 1,000, 2,000 words. Just hunkering down, just writing them.
That's about the max you can do in the morning too, isn't it?
Yeah. After that, I'm like, I have to
the energy expended.
It does. It's mentally draining. So I'll do some more later today because I have some ideas that I want to put in there. But
I was what I do. I'll tell you honestly. I
Mhm.
outline after the fact, so I'm able to go back and reference stuff because this the story flows.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and I even for the first novel, if I'm ever fortunate enough, I almost got a bite. I did a 6-part TV miniseries script.
Mhm.
It's called a spec script, so it's pretty lean,
Yeah, yeah.
not like a shooting script, as you might
Mhm.
know. And I actually had a producer, actor, director interested, but he wanted me to go raise the money for it. And I went, oh, yeah, okay, sure. I'm up to that.
Hold on, I'll just
I
give you
have
a
some
check.
connections, but I'm not a big enough stockholder in some of the stuff I hold stock in.
Exactly.
But the inspiration flows, and you know what keeps it on fire too is, and I reach out to fellow writers, read, and not
Mhm.
just stuff in your own genre.
Right.
Um, I just finished up. I've been immersed the last few weeks in stories about mountain men. I just read John Myers' book about Hugh Glass, the guy that the movie The Revenant was based on.
Mhm.
Um,
That
and
was a good movie. He
oh, it
was a
was
tough
awesome.
old man. Holy
Oh my
smokes.
gosh, yeah. And honestly, from what Myers, who's highly recommended as an historian, what he was able to gather from mostly anecdotal and hearsay writings
Mhm.
about Glass, the movie pretty much stuck to it, except
Huh.
he didn't kill Fitzgerald and Bridger
Okay.
from all indications.
Right.
And ultimately, Glass meets his end at the hand of Arakawa Indians,
Right.
the Rees, they called them. Um, so it's that occurred maybe 10 years or so after the incident with the grizzly bear.
Huh. That's
But
amazing.
he
So,
actually forgives Bridger
uh-huh.
as he figures, hey, he's too young. And then Fitzgerald, the other guy that left him behind at the grizzly, at the site,
Right.
um, he Fitzgerald has joined the army, and the commandant won't let Glass kill a soldier. So Glass figures,
That's probably
okay,
a good thing.
if he gives me back my rifle, we'll call it okay.
I was in the army. I didn't want to kill any of my guys. I wanted to strangle them.
Right, right, exactly. So anyway, one of the other things that keeps it going, I do a lot of research. I like to walk the ground that my characters walk. So I've walked
Mhm.
all over the Nueces Strip. I had a cousin, Patrick. By the way, there are 3 Texas state historical markers down in Corpus Christi area to my family:
Oh wow,
John
that's
Dunn, Matthew
amazing.
Dunn, and Patrick Dunn. Patrick, from the late 1800s to early 19, almost like 1937, 38,
Mhm.
actually raised longhorns on the North Padre Island outside of Corpus Christi.
Oh wow.
And they dug freshwater wells on that strip of land.
Yeah, it's not
And
very big. I've
well,
been
it
down
was
there. Yeah,
big
it's not very
enough.
big. Yeah.
Every 25 miles they had a vaquero station, and he built part of his house from driftwood from shipwrecks, and
Huh.
raised his family there and in Corpus Christi proper. They used to bring the cattle across, they'd wade them across until they dug a channel,
Mhm.
and then they had to ferry them.
Right.
But it was a fascinating time. You go back there and just see the sea of grass,
Right.
and that's the way it was. I mean, it was
That's
pretty cool.
amazing. Yeah, in my
Um,
book too, I put a lot of all the places are real, like the
oh yeah,
towns are real, and I try to visit them or have been there. Right.
yep,
Some in Russia I haven't been to, so that's a little tough right now. But a lot of
yeah.
the others I
Well,
try to go to or be there because or I've done a podcast yesterday with somebody, and we talked a lot about the research that goes into a book.
oh my
People
goodness.
think
Oh,
about okay, if it's nonfiction, there's a lot of research. Fiction books have just an enormous amount of research because you want to make it where
oh
it's
yeah,
believable. It's not
oh yeah,
sci-fi, right? It's believable.
yeah. I mean, I have relatives who are steeped in guns. They'll tell me
Mhm.
everything I want to know about. If I got an 1851 Colt Navy, I better be depicting an 1851 Colt Navy
Right.
and having the right caliber and a whole 9 yards.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You know, um,
If you got
the
one, hold on to it.
oh yeah, I got a replica. Um, 1895 Winchester, that was a special, and that's featured in my Lone Star Vigilante book.
Right.
But drawing, going to museums, libraries, archives and libraries, archives and newspapers. I mean, I got newspaper articles I got a list from a newspaper in 1867 out of Corpus Christi, a page that listed the folks who died from yellow fever. The population at the time of Corpus Christi was about 1,100.
Mm-hmm.
That newspaper article listed 110 folks.
2%.
5 of them were my ancestors.
Oh, wow.
Duns.
That's crazy.
Like, whoa, wild.
So
you find these gems. Same year, I had a cousin who was befriended some Mexicans who had stopped by his ranch, water their horses and that sort of thing. The next day they came back figuring that they were going to rob him of money he'd gotten from selling some livestock. They shot him in the back of the head. And then
wow.
the law eventually tracked these guys down and captured them. But, wild and crazy stuff.
That's crazy.
1875, I had a cousin, Red John Dunn, who spent 10 years as a Texas Ranger he even served under McNally at one point. But he was under some less than savory Ranger captains of the time, actually. He met John Wesley Hardin, famed murderer. But he helped raise the posse at the Good Friday raid of 1875 in Corpus Christi, where a whole slew of Mexican bandits had come in and took a bunch of folks hostage, including members of my family. And they murdered some folks. There was a general store where they robbed this guy named Noakes. They robbed his saddles. And for better or worse, probably mostly worse, any Mexican caught with a Noakes saddle after that for a few years was history.
Oh, wow.
Terrible. Yeah, you'd find them strung. Little neck
wow.
But they actually raised a posse, and the Dunns and the Whalens and the Swanks, and about a dozen of them, 10, I think, actually. And they went after the bandits and actually freed the hostages. No hostages were harmed. And they chased the bandits off. Only one person was killed, one of the posse. And they were thinking about chasing the Mexicans down to Mexico, but they were out of ammo, so it was over.
No, there wasn't
Those are the kind of stories you draw upon, Travis.
Yeah, there's no Cabela's on your way down there back then. The Cabela's didn't exist, or any of the gunsmith and shops and stuff. So what? So you got that. You got another couple books coming out.
Yep.
You do a lot of research for your books, so they're very believable. So folks, when you read them, you can be in the story. That's the key, right? Is being in the story and being one of the characters that most, you like or resembles you or you want to be like or something. So that's great. I mean, you're quite. I mean, you have man.
And sometimes
stories.
Sometimes it's good. Like you take a little risk. Like I got one book. It's about 25% done. It's on the back burner. It's called Alyssa's story, and it's my protagonist from Nueces Truth. It's his wife, and it's her story from her diary.
Oh, wow.
And so I've tried to. That takes kind of a special thing because you got to get yourself in. Well, how's a woman? What's she going to write in her diary?
Right. So do you have to read your books in sequence, or they're independent? Do you read
they can stand independently. Yeah, they can. Though I leave it hanging at the end, it makes you want to get the next one.
It's excellent. Then you got to go back and figure out who the characters are, which is tough in a book because you don't have to reintroduce everybody. How much do you reintroduce everybody in the second book?
Well, I have in the front a list of characters, both fictional and historical, so people can kind of get a little handle on it. I've got a map, and in the latest versions, I've actually got a little cool thing that came out of looking at the history of the filming of Lonesome Dove. This is hard to see in the camera, but it's a layout of Nueces Town, which is now a ghost town, which formed the basis of my Tumbleweed Sagas. It was a base town.
Interesting.
So it was a ferry that Colonel Kinney had established. But the real risk, actually, this book I mentioned, the novel that I'm doing for teens, is I've written everything third person.
Okay.
And this is going to be my first go writing first person.
Ah.
And which, if you read a lot of Louis L'Amour, that's his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's, weaving that story because I think you can get into a person, the character's head and what they're thinking,
Right.
so much more than being the outside observer.
Right. Looking above.
Yeah.
Yeah, I write mine in third person because it's just there's so much going on. There's so many different things going on. It'd be hard to switch back and forth. And
there you go.
And I didn't know what I was doing when I started. So.
Oh yeah. No, true.
That's for darn sure. So where can folks get a hold of you? Where can they contact you?
All right, you got my website at tumbleweed.me, M-E, or markgreathouseauthor.com. You can get me on Facebook at Tumbleweed Sagas or at Mark Greathouse.
Okay.
And those are really the best. I'm on Instagram too, but I don't go down that road very often.
Right.
Facebook primarily.
Okay. Excellent. And then of course you go out, excuse me, to defiancepress.com and
right. Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Look
Yeah.
at all the books or Amazon or wherever.
And if folks, I do have on the tumbleweed.me, I've got access to like 125 videos or so. I cut videos every now and then that give insights to Western life, to writing, to all manner of stuff. In fact, I'm getting ready. I did it for my writers group kind of as a preview, but this coming Tuesday, I've got I do a pitch on Western genre history and culture. Got a little 11-minute video that I shot and talks about the history of the genre.
Right.
And kind of fun because Western genre is special to it's Americana. And it's so special because there's so many subgenres. I mean, I make the case that Star Wars is
the Western.
Yeah. It's got good triumphing over evil on the frontier, the whole.
I think there's something to that.
Yeah.
I mean, my son's a big Star Wars guy. I would say that he'd probably, Dad, you can't visit me anymore, sort of thing.
Well, I was in Barnes and Noble the other day, and I'm looking for a C.J. Box book, Stormwatch, and I asked a clerk. I said, "Where the heck is it?" He says, "Oh, that's in the mystery section. It's a Western,
right?
It's another triplet novel. Come on."
So do you have any book signings coming up? Folks can hang out with you?
Actually, I have this Tuesday event coming up for the Historical Gettysburg Adams County Preservation Society. It's actually pretty active. They salvage barns and battlefield stuff around the Gettysburg area. It's a pretty cool organization. And we're meeting there at their headquarters in Gettysburg. Anyone who can get there, it's 7 o'clock, 53 East Main Street, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I'll be doing the video and then a follow-up with some anecdotal stuff, some of which I shared today, and signing books will be available. Yep.
Well, it was interesting to say the least. I feel like I've just had a history class. No test. I hope there's not a test. I mean, please. I hope there's not a test. That was amazing. I what I enjoy most about doing the podcast is you meet just a wide, diverse group of people and all different stories, but there's almost a common thread amongst all authors, right? Even if it's the thinnest thread, there is something that they all kind of, they talk about and or relate to, or how they do this or how they do that. That's what I find so interesting, and I've learned just a ton of. I probably have some of the largest brain matter of useless knowledge known to man, and it comes in handy sometimes.
It's only useless until you put it in a book, right, Travis?
I know. My wife says, "How do you come up with all this stuff?" I go, I grew up in the 70s. I don't, that's all I can
You
say.
don't even have to have willing suspension of disbelief on this stuff.
That's right. I
All
just come
right,
up with stuff.
quick story,
Yes.
a true one. I had a cousin, one of the sons of this my great great
Mhm.
grandfather, became a rancher and a banker in Alice, Texas, and he was in his bank one day, and he had his this was in the early 1900s, about 1920s,
Mhm.
and he had his foot on a rail in front of the teller window, and some itinerant comes in there who's all ticked off because he didn't pay his mortgage and he's been being evicted, and
Uh-huh.
he comes in and he kicks. My cousin was like 6'3", pretty big dude. He kicks his foot off the rail. My, the story, according to witnesses, is my cousin laid him out with one punch,
Uh-huh.
teeth, the whole 9 yards. All right. And this is where it gets good. He realized that he'd lost a cufflink. So he takes this guy by the scruff of the neck and they go around until he finds the cufflink, and then he kicks him out the front door of the bank. Well, this guy is all upset, and he goes to his buddies at the Ku Klux Klan.
Uh-huh.
And he says, I told him what happened. Da, 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 da. Well, who did this to you? Oh, it was John Dunn. Oh, no. You're not going down there. So, you know.
Oh my God, that's crazy. It didn't even charge me any extra interest on his notes. So that's excellent.
Go figure.
Well, that's been excellent talking to you. Really, and folks,
All right.
check out his
Appreciate it,
books,
Travis.
and you'll learn a
Nueces
lot about
Truth.
the West.
You bet.
All right, take it easy.
Thanks kindly.
Thanks, bye.
You bet.